and from then on they shared a unique screen credit. Written, produced and directed by Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger.
I don't know who suggested the famous trademark, but I remember saying to Emmerich one day, "You ought to know this jingle by James Agate. It goes, 'The arrow was pure gold, but somehow missed the target. But as all golden arrow trippers know, it's better to miss Naples than hit Margate.'" But that was in the future. Back in 1939, Hitler was rattling his saber, war was drawing nearer every day, and we were all working here at Denham on Corder's Arabian fantasy, The Thief of Baghdad.
The lash that descends, the yoke that breaks, and the sword that slays, by the power and terror of these, you may conquer the earth.
Lift yourselves, winds of heaven, lift till you wail aloud.
And from the ranges of the sky, he shall destroy this tyrant with the arrow of justice.
Corder promised Churchill that if war was declared, the next day he would turn the whole of Denham's resources over to making a propaganda film and have it out within 1 month. In return, he asked that the British film industry should be regarded as an essential war weapon. He got his agreement. The Lion Has Wings was an outrageous piece of propaganda. It was full of half-truths and half-lies. There were some stagey episodes which were rather embarrassing.
And the commanding officer of the bomber station addresses his officers. A striking contrast to the friendly atmosphere that is Britain's way.
Haben Sie es verstanden? Die Befehle, Herr Oberst. Danke, meine Herren. Heil Hitler! Heil Hitler!
Still, the will to fight was there.
Memo from Ministry of Information. Program for film propaganda.
Feature films of the present war are already being made by private companies. A film on contraband is well underway.
Heave to immediately. Let them come and get me.
When we made Contraband at sea, the message was to Admiral Dönitz that in spite of his U-boats, if neutrals brought him contraband by sea, they would be arrested and properly impounded.
The film being a popular medium must be good entertainment if it is to be good propaganda. Film propaganda will be most effective when it is least recognizable as such.
Mrs. Sorensen, have you ever been put in irons?
No. I use my legs.
Go on.
I'd been preparing for a leading role in my profession for 13 years, and now I was offered opportunity after opportunity, and I took them with both hands. On 49th parallel, I found myself dealing with governments and pushing whole countries around in the cause of an epic idea. Our intention was to make a melodrama that would bring America into the war. Tall order. But it didn't seem impossible in 1940.
6 fugitive Nazis stranded on Canadian soil, determined to reach neutral territory.
We were able to get big stars to collaborate with us, and we shot our way across Canada and back. All the Powell Pressburger wartime films were original stories, written for the screen, trying to keep pace with events and putting into action what the ordinary person was thinking.
Can you hear them running for shelter? Can you understand what that means to all the occupied countries? To enslaved people having it drummed into their ears that the Germans are masters of the earth? Seeing those masters running for shelter, seeing them crouching under tables, and hearing that steady hum night after night, that noise which is oil for the burning fire in our hearts.
The influence brought to bear by the ministry on the producers of feature films must be kept secret.
Prime Minister, I attach, as directed, a note on the blimp film, which is in course of being produced and which I think it of the utmost importance to get stopped. James Grigg, Secretary of State for War. The film begins with a collision between a young officer of today and Major General Clive Candy, aged 66.
You're an extremely impudent young officer. But let me tell you that in 40 years' time, you'll be an old gentleman, too. And if your belly keeps pace with your head, you'll have a bigger one than any of us.
Maybe I shall in 40 years, but I doubt it. And I doubt if I'll have time to grow a moustache like yours, sir. But in 1983, at least I shall be able to say that 40 years ago, I was a fellow of enterprise.
The film then goes back to 1902, when the general himself was a subaltern with a similar intolerance of his elders, and impetuous enough to embarrass the British embassy in Germany by fighting a duel with a German officer.
Boss!
Then it traces his progress across the years in various parts of the British Empire, and so to the War of 1914-18.
The Germans have accepted the terms of the armistice. Hostilities cease at 10 o'clock. It's nearly that now. Murdoch, do you know what this means?
I do, sir. Peace. I can go home. Everybody can go home.
For me, Murdoch, it means more than that. It means that right is might, after all. The Germans have shelled hospitals, bombed open towns, sunk neutral ships, used poison gas, and we won. Clean fighting, honest soldiering have won.
Candy's attitude between the wars is a lack of comprehension as to why the Germans cannot realize that they were fairly and squarely beaten, and there is no reason why they should not make and remain friends.
Teo.
Whatever the film makes of the spirit of the young soldier of today, the fact remains that it focuses attention on an imaginary type of army officer which has become an object of ridicule to the general public.
Pray propose to me the measures necessary to stop this foolish production before it gets any further. I'm not prepared to allow propaganda detrimental to the morale of the army. I'm sure the Cabinet will take all necessary action. Who are the people behind it?
What was your reaction to what Churchill called this foolish production, his attempt to stop it?
We didn't bear any malice to Churchill. We knew he was mainly responsible for us all being reserved to make films during the war. At least he knew films were a real weapon.
So you're going to go make the film anyway. Did you feel sympathetic to Blimp as a character?
Oh, yes, I identify completely with him. Lots of things are exactly like me.
Such as?
Couldn't be more English. I was sentimental and loved women and dogs. I'd always felt enormously sympathetic with that kind of man. And, you know, honorable, puzzled, innocent, and doing a great deal of harm with his puzzlement and his ignorance and his innocence. And I see myself very much like that.
Do you also see him as a romantic figure?
I don't think that I've ever felt romantic. I've always felt like the same small boy who fell in love with soldiers and had a pony when he was 8 or 9. And, very innocent, really.
I was in love with her, your wife.
She never told me.
She never knew.
But I seem to remember... Oh, Clive, that last day in Berlin when I told you, you seemed genuinely happy.
Dash it, I didn't know then. But on the train, I started to miss her. On the boat, it was worse. And by the time I got back to London, well, I got it properly. My Aunt Margaret got onto the scent straight away. Women have a nose for these sort of things. Besides, I did a stupid thing. First night back, I took out her sister.
Aunt Margaret?
Edith's.
Oh, Martha?
Yes.
What's stupid about that?
Thinking her sister would be like she was?
Like Edith?
Yes.
Well, you got over it?
That's just it. I never got over it. Theo, this may sound a damn silly thing to say to you, but I never got over it. You may say that she was my ideal. If you were some sort of sickening long-haired poet, all my life I've been looking for a woman like her. So now you know.
Well, of course, Emmerich couldn't write real English dialogue. He wrote wonderful dialogue. His scenes were always the right shape. But it was up to me to make them what they were in the way of Englishness, you know, the revealing things, the little things about English men and women. And naturally, in writing the scripts, the final English dialogue script was mine.
When you say you always got the shape right, is there any more to be said about that?
Well, you can't have higher praise, really. I always say about an actor or an actress, he or she can't possibly play that part. They're the wrong shape for it. And it's much the same with a scene. He always saw the whole thing at one moment. I often had to discover it. There was one or two famous occasions when I directed a whole sequence, not quite understanding it, and only found out afterwards what it was really about. Michael, he would say, don't you realize? No, really, you're far too clever for me.
Can you say what you think is most exemplary about the script?
Most exemplary? I think the love story.
Here's to the happiness of my fiancée, who was never my fiancée, and here's to the man who tried to kill me before he was introduced to me. Prost. May I kiss the bride?
Why ask? I did not ask.
Goodbye, Clive.
Goodbye, Edith, old girl. I hope we'll meet again sometime.
I'm sure we shall.
In the film, Blimp has a relationship with 3 women. The English governess in Berlin, the young Yorkshire nurse whom he marries, and then the young driver who drives him around in the Second World War. They're all played by the same woman, Deborah Kerr. How would you describe Blimp's attitude towards the woman in the film?
Oh, blind worship. I thought the little scene, that's an answer to your question. There's a little scene I played at the fireside with the spaniel snoring, you know, and he hums, and she says, don't hum. Emmerich was furious at this. Emmerich, I hope you're watching. Furious at this because he said, if my wife said to me, don't hum, you know, I would hit her.
Darling, don't hum.
Was I humming?
Mm-hmm. It's a little habit you've got.
Well, what do I do if I don't hum?
You said at the outset that you knew what you wanted to do with Blimp. Did you do what you wanted to do? Did you achieve what you wanted? Which was what?
Oh, make a wonderful love story and then fall in love with the girl myself. With the worldwide success of Colonel Blimp, we'd had 7 successes in a row, but the gods were already smiling. We were planning a Canterbury Tale. We wanted to explain to the Americans and to our own people the traditions and the spiritual values we were all fighting for. I'm pretty sure that it was I who had walked the Pilgrim's Way many times that suggested the leading characters should be pilgrims to Canterbury. Along the way, they encounter a loony squire who pours glue on girls' heads at night to stop them going out with soldiers. This strange fanatic looks on himself as the guardian of English virtues.
But there are more ways than one of getting close to your ancestors. Follow the old road, and as you walk, think of them and of the old England. They climbed Chillingbourne Hill just as you did. They sweated and paused for breath just as you did today. And when you see the bluebells in the spring and the wild thyme and the broom and the heather, you're only seeing what their eyes saw. You ford the same rivers, same birds are singing. When you lie flat on your back and rest and watch the clouds sailing, as I often do, you're so close to those other pilgrims that you can hear the thrumming of the hoofs of their horses and the sound of the wheels on the road and their laughter and talk and the music of the instruments they carried.
I suppose the film is a kind of morality play, whatever that may mean, which ends with all the pilgrims on their way to Canterbury to receive their blessings. Only the fanatical squire receives no blessing. He has tried to play God, and the part of God is the lonely one.
Pilgrims for Canterbury, all out and get your blessings.
Rum sort of pilgrimage for you.
A pilgrimage can be either to receive a blessing or to do penance.
I don't need either.
Perhaps you're an instrument.
Do I get a flaming sword?
Nothing will surprise me.
I'll believe that when I see a halo round my head.
I was inspired by loyalty to place, loyalty to the narrow streets of Canterbury, the Christchurch Gate, and the great cathedral itself, standing in the green lawns of the precincts. Above all, I was inspired by gratitude and love for having been born a man of Kent. Canterbury Tale was one of our first failures. The values that we were discussing were old hat. Still, we loved the picture. By 1945, the war was nearly over, and Technicolor was with us again. Jack Beddington, who headed the films division of the MFI, sent for us and said, "You chaps are very ingenious. You think of your own stories, you write your own scripts. In fact, your films are more like sermons than anything else." I said, "Thanks very much." He said, no, look, surely Emmerich can think of a way to make a film to show the Americans and the English that they love each other.
I want to be alone with you, June. Where were you born?
In Boston.
Mass?
Yes.
That's a place to be born. History was made there.